Hello everyone, Beardychiel here, and I have in front of me some Aran sitting on a pair of rather unusual needles, which were a gift from Robert Lawrence, Papa Lawrence for those of you who know him online. Light up, knitting in the dark, and needles. These are 5.5mm needles, and my plan is to use this footage as a small brioche tutorial to go along with the Hooded Bat Shawl pattern. So, starting here, not with the same number of stitches you're going to have on the shawl, a lot less, but just enough to let you have an example of how the brioche stitches that you need to know are worked and how the increases fit in each time. So at the start of each row we have knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, all into one stitch. Now we're going to work the two setup rows for the brioche, and they are really straightforward. Knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1 purlwise. Knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1 purlwise. Knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1 purlwise. Knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1. Knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1. Knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I will see you at the start of the next row. I don't see why you should have to suffer through it. And a last reminder, knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1. Knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1. See you in a second. Coming to the end of the row, knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1. I'm on the last stitch, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, all into that one stitch. Right folks, this is not the second row, this is the second half of the first row. So we're going to knit 1, and then we are going to have yarn forward, slip 1, knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1, and here's the first of the BRK knits, and of course there's a stitch and its associated yarn over, which are treated as a single stitch. So yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit, and again yarn forward, slip 1. The brioche knit is the knit stitch and its associated yarn over, treated as a single stitch. And we're going to work that way right along until we are back at the end of this row. And I will see you in a minute or two when we get to start our brioche pattern proper, now that the two setup rows will have been completed. Slip 1, and then we will start again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're back to another increase. So again, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, all into the same stitch, yarn forward, slip 1, and then another set. 1, 2, 3. Now I know that this is not the same amount of spacing between increases and decreases as the pattern. Please don't expect it to be. Now here we go. 1, 2, 3 brioche knits and the 2 stitches between. We're taking the first 2 brioche knits and the stitch in between, and we're slipping the whole lot knitwise. We're knitting the next brioche knit and loop, as if they were one stitch, and then very gently I'm going to work my passing the slip stitches over, and they will all pass over quite nicely. Don't need to rush and try and get them all over in one go, and again you'll end up with what was the front stitch at the front, everything else fitting in behind. And I'm just going to brioche to the end, and at the end, of course, I have my increase, knit one, yarn over, knit one to finish that row. And that has established where the start of my decreases and increases, my peaks and troughs, are for this pattern. I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to put in the second pass of the brioche, because you need to see how the back of these stitches are worked as well. So as I work towards them, I'm going to knit one for the increase, and I'm going to have yarn forward, slip one, knit one, yarn forward, slip one, and there's my first brioche knit proper on this side. So there's my brioche knit, slip one, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one, brioche knit, and then here I am where my decrease was, and yarn forward, that's a slip one this time, and there's my next brioche knit on the other side of it. Don't let this get too loose, keep the brioche knit, keep the yarn over, or the yarn forward and yarn over, as tight as it normally would be, and I'm going to work myself to the next rear of a stitch, which was the increase, and here it is. I have my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. I've just done a brioche knit, so it's yarn forward, slip one, and then it's just going to be a knit stitch, yarn forward, slip one, a knit stitch, yarn forward, slip one, and it takes me right into the brioche knit. Now there's another one of those coming up, so you'll get a chance to see it again. So again, I'm just following that basic brioche pattern of brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one, brioche knit, yarn forward, and here is my decrease. It's a slip one again, don't let that get too loose, into the brioche knit on the other side, yarn forward, slip one, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one, brioche knit, yarn forward, and here we are, we're back at our 5 and 1 again, and straight away I'm going to start with a slip one, a knit, yarn forward, slip one, a knit, and I'm going to finish with a yarn forward, slip one, which takes me into the brioche knit on the other side, yarn forward, slip one, and that's going to take me to the end of the row. Just keeping that pattern running, slip, and we're getting to the end here, so we don't have a brioche knit, we have a knit, yarn forward, slip one, and then let's just knit the last stitch, and that's going to set us up on that increase so that the brioche pattern extends along the section that we're increasing. Now we're ready to move on to our next row, and with this particular set of points and troughs, it's really important that you have a plain brioche row between the decreases. So we're going to do 2 rows of really simple brioche knits, yarn over and slips. So we need to start this side, on the right side, with an increase, to maintain the shawl shaping. And then we're straight into brioche knit. And we're just going to work our way right across. So brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one. 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 And here we go, this is our first set of 5, so there's a brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one, the central stitch, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one, and we'll work our way right to the end doing this, and it's nice and straightforward. You're just maintaining that rhythm. When you get into the rhythm, it comes very, very quickly, and it actually grows quite quickly. Now, those of you who have never worked brioche before, it's going to grow on your needles and appear to be much bigger than your previous knitting, and it's purely because of the size and relaxed nature of the brioche stitch. It is possible when you're doing this, if you want it to stay incredibly neat and tidy, to go down a couple of needle sizes to keep it neat and tidy. But for me, in effect, on this particular shawl pattern, I want it to float a little. I want it to become really big at the end. This, just by the nature of the way the brioche grows, takes over the increases at the end of the pattern, so I don't have to worry about making the shawl increases anywhere other than at the outside edges. And we're getting up to there, so there's that last brioche knit, and in the last stitch, knit one, yarn over, knit one, and let's finish the 4th pass of the brioche pattern, which is going to finish the entire brioche pattern repeat. Again, this time we are starting with a simple knit one, and then we'll have yarn forward, slip one, knit one, yarn forward, slip one, and there we are. We're automatically at a brioche knit, so we know we've got the pattern right, and we're just going to work our way to the end. Again, same routine, knit one, yarn forward, slip one, knit one, yarn forward, slip one, and all the slip ones are slip one purl wise, of course. I should have said that at the beginning. And you feel as if you're getting through it quite quickly because you're only knitting every second stitch, and that's why it takes 2 passes to make an entire row of growth, because you're only knitting half of the stitches on each pass. And that is going to take us, as I say, to the end of one whole pattern repeat of this brioche increase and decrease pattern, which you need to see. And I am going to stop at the end of this row. Now, I personally, when I was doing this, didn't bother to count between the increases and decreases. I did the first set, and then I put stitch markers into the central stitch of each increase and decrease, and then I just worked up to the markers and put in the appropriate increase and decrease stitches on the first row of each pattern pass, and then worked the second half of that row, and then the 2 passes that make up the second row of the pattern. And we're almost at the end of that second pass now. Here we are, coming up to the end. I knit one, slip one, yarn forward, slip one, and I knit one to finish. And we have established the pattern. Now, what I do like to do, forgive me, my tablet's sitting here, is as I get to each of these, I like to identify the central stitch of the pattern, and I like to put a marker in there to remind me of where I'm going as I work my way up. I'll go along to the decreases, they're easier to see, and again I'll put a stitch marker or a progress keeper into that central stitch so that I know that I'm always decreasing around that central stitch. Next set of increases, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3 coming out of there, so it's that one that we're always going to be increasing into, above that one. And again, there's the 3 and 1, so again stitch marker there, and you can just brioche knit, yarn forward and slip one between these markers and carry out the increases and decreases as I stay. So that was one set of increases and decreases. I'm going to stick a couple more on here, and I'll be back 2 or 3 repeats in. I'm just going to slip this off its needles and let you see that the points have started to take shape. So I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Hi folks, Beardychiel back again. As you can see, I have continued to knit, and I've knitted 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern repeats, and you can see that the point becomes quite well defined, the trough is quite well defined, and you can see that the decreases and increases work quite well. It's finished simply the same way that I would recommend finishing the shawl, with just a simple cast off or bind off. In terms of the pattern, I've knitted this using method 1, and the way the pattern's set up, you will have one extra peak than you will trough, so the ends will come away like that in the simple version for method 1. If you want to use method 2, which allows you to put in an extra increase or decrease every 4 stitches, you might end up with a finish like this, running from a decrease. Either way, it works well. I think this one works slightly better for wrapping the shawl around yourself. It does block out slightly more pointy. By the time you add that to a straight shawl, that will point out an extra little bit when you're blocking, and it relaxes back to sort of like the 2 or 3 inch mark, which is perfectly adequate for the pattern. 5 repeats of the pattern gives you a reasonable point. You might want to do 6 or 7 if you want the shawl to be that bit longer. It's entirely up to yourselves, and that finishes that bit of input. So from Beardychiel and this little brioche tutorial for the Hooded Bat Shawl, cheerio!